Hey, does yours is a little like echoey. Did you know that? Just and I noticed that on one of your
It's
other
the
things.
headphones
Okay, that you use and stuff sometimes.
that you using.
Okay, well, no, because when I was listening to your show, I heard you a little bit. What you call it too? That's
Sometimes, but typically, I mean, we got a steady connection. We'd like to welcome you to BlackUSA.News morning show. My name's Donnie. We're here with Dr. BK Edmond. Cut on your mic there, Doc.
all right. Now I took my headphones off, so I'm just regular. Is this okay for you, Donnie?
It's perfect. It's perfect.
Okay. All right.
Now, you are a medical doctor, right?
Yeah, I sure am. I'm a practicing anesthesiologist in the Maryland area, and that's the book right there, None in the Bushwoman. That's it. But
let's go back. You said you are an anesthesiologist. I remember when I was in high school, my dad gave me an article, and this was in 83 or so. Said anesthesiologists start off at 86,000 a year, and I think he was trying to give me a hint, but look, he was a bully. I was raised by bullies, but I knew I didn't like anesthesiology per se. I'm a writer. I also knew I didn't want to go to the Naval Academy.
Mm-hmm. Well, we're not going to fault you on one of those,
I didn't want nobody to tell me go take that hill while they over there on the beach.
Right. You have to know yourself if you're going to get involved in the military. It takes a special person. But my hat's off to the brothers who can do it. But everybody has to follow their own path, man. And you've obviously done that. In terms of how you've established yourself and set yourself up. In terms of journalism and stuff.
Now you mentioned in the pre-interview that you're born and raised in Atlanta.
Right. I was born in Columbus, but raised in Atlanta, right over in Southwest Atlanta, SWAT. Over there, College Park on one side, Fulton Industrial on the other. So right down Cascade Road, man.
Now, see, I didn't know it was the SWAT until recently.
Yeah, that's it. That's what we call it and stuff. That's Southwest Atlanta.
Something funny, man. Mm-hmm. My daddy's nickname was Doc. He was a film director. Mm-hmm. He was a doctor like you, but a doctor of the dead.
Right.
Well, anyway, in August of 83, and the only other place I've been that was hotter than Atlanta was Africa. It was so hot in Atlanta. I remember changing clothes 3 times a day just from the sweat. And I didn't have an AC or a car. And I learned that that's suicide in Atlanta. But when I got there, and this was my naivete, we lived on Cascade Place right off of Gordon, 2-3 blocks from Kroger's. And I noticed, like in Baltimore, everybody calls each other yo. Well, down in Atlanta, everybody called each other Doc.
That's right.
But I thought for some kind of reason they knew my father. Because his name was Doc. And then I said, at first I was like, okay, because it was people on my block. But then everywhere I went, everybody was Doc. What's up, Doc? What's up, Doc?
That is it, man.
Like, that ain't my daddy. There's too many people down here. He ain't spent that kind of time. He might have zipped through here, but not enough to get a name.
No, that's it. That's it. Hey, each tribe to their own, brother. Each tribe. If you talk to my son who was born and raised up here, he's going to hit you with the yo. Okay. And I understand what that means. And now I'm going to tell him, Doc, you got to understand what I'm saying. And he'll know what I'm saying because he comes from me. But yeah, you're 100% right. That the South has its way.
I learned one new word in Atlanta too.
Which one's that?
A word I'd never heard before in the English language.
Let me guess. Fentanyl. Well, to be honest,
Baltimore boys a minute to wrap our brain around that. And we had many jokes. And that's when the Jerry curl was out too. Everybody had a plastic bag on.
That's it. So, but on a serious tip, hopefully this morning, I'm finna share some information with your audience that'll be uplifting and positive. That'll be an asset to their day, and that'll hopefully give them a smile, but also give them some knowledge that's Afrocentric based knowledge that can help them take it to the next level, man. So I'm looking forward to the discussion this morning. And that's Nana right there. That's Nana in the bush.
Your very dear friend, Fraser Mathis, the man that took me to Ethiopia and Tanzania, insists that we cover this book. So let me just read the promo. The mission statement of the Edmond Project seeks to use the art form of storytelling to enlighten, encourage, and impact the physical, spiritual, mental, and social health of all communities. And one of the reports, one of the people who have read the book and they recommended it, Lauren Bolden, MD, internal medicine resident, said that this is a captivating story of family, sisterhood, and the power of education. Nana and the Bushwoman is a tale full of twists and turns that not only challenges readers to see beyond what meets the eye, but also empowers them to advocate for themselves, their families, and their community. A must read for the women in your life and those who love them. Tell me about Nana and the Bushwoman, Doc. Where'd you get the name?
The name?
Yes.
Okay. So basically, Nana is a common name that's used in Ghana, and basically, the Bushwoman is actually a term that's kind of a soft insult that city dwellers use to describe some of the women who live in the countryside. So the reality is with Nana and the Bushwoman, that's kind of like where I got the title, because when you look at that title, you know you're dealing with somebody young who's engaging with somebody who's more traditional. So you can tell that just from the title. But that's kind of like why I call it. But the other part of it, it says a tale with truths. So it's Nana and the Bushwoman, a tale with truths. And the reality is a lot of the interactions that happened in the book are actually real interactions that occurred. So for example, there's in part of the book, there's a point where the Nana gets confronted with some serious health news. That actually happened. Okay. The response that Nana had was a real response that a friend of mine who was being told for the second time that she had cancer had in the doctor's office. And when the doctor hit her with the truth that she had this second type of cancer, this lady who was normally well put together, you have those sisters who are always composed and everything, Donnie, man, she broke down and started acting like a 3-year-old. She dropped what she was doing and ran out of the doctor's office screaming. When she called me and I talked to her, I said, well, hey, what did you do when you went back to the doctor's office? She said, I didn't go back to the doctor's office. She said, she threw hands up and said, Bumpy, they had to set up another appointment to call her in. So that was the emotions that were expressed when Nana gets that shock. Those are real thoughts and real emotions that they have. Some of the healing components that go on there are real efforts and so real events that occurred. So the whole deal is, that's really that. So there's some truths in this story too. So that's why we call it Nana and the Bushwoman, a tale with truths. The description of the tattoos and part of that go down the back of the Bushwoman herself. There you go. The descriptions of the tattoos, those are real, man. That there's a woman who was over in Ghana, who came back from Ghana, who showed me that. Author's notes. Yep, that's it. Yeah, that's those are kind of like those are the truths about the book.
So these are Adinkra symbols.
Absolutely. So those symbols that you see are Adinkra symbols, and many brothers may have seen those before. And basically, they're based in West Africa, Ghana, and the Ivory Coast. And the Adinkra symbols are almost, I want you to imagine emojis that are hundreds of years old. So those symbols are, the one that looks like a star is kind of wisdom. The one that's back and forth is versatility. And the larger circle is greatness. And so what we're doing is basically repurposing some symbols that have been around since the early 1800s. These are African symbols, West African symbols that have been around to the 1800s. We'll repurpose. No, 1 second. There you go. That's it. We're repurposing those to 1 second, Donnie, my fault. I'm in the hospital, brother. There you go. There you go. 1 second, bro. Doctor does mean doctor. So what we do is we repurpose those symbols to basically instruct, and make an easy to remember, uplifting way that people can actually remember how to do a self-breast exam. And so we use wisdom, versatility, and greatness, and we're encouraging women and trying to teach women and men to basically raise their level of play in terms of self-care, using this as a guide. Absolutely. And they're basically the 3 keys. One of the things about the book, we let people know the 3 keys to early diagnosis and stuff. And one of the 3 keys is, number 1, knowing your breast. You know, you want to do your breast exam on a regular basis. Some people say every month. The key is just get familiar with yourself. The problem we ran into, Donnie, was a lot of women did not know how to approach their own self-breast exam. And I've been approached by multiple women who are over the age of 70 who say, hey, man, this is a good refresher course in how to approach myself when I'm feeling and touching my breast and stuff. So the reality is the first thing is we want people to examine themselves. The second thing is we want sisters who are the age of 25 or older. There's a link that you can go to in the book or on a site where you can get a free screening and stuff. And we want you to get a screening so that you can talk with your primary care doctor and set up a game plan for your life on when to start mammograms, ultrasounds, MRIs, or CTs. What we have to understand is being a Black woman alone puts you at a high risk category for having breast cancer. And if breast cancer happens in 1 in 9 Black women, which is a little less than the average, when it comes, it hits harder and it hurts harder because the mortality rate, death rate is a lot higher, Donnie. And other than that, and then the outcomes are a lot worse and stuff.
How long have you been a doctor?
Man, I've been a doctor since, I finished medical school in 1990, and finished anesthesia in 94. But the beautiful part about being a doctor is you get to get exposed to different aspects of medicine. And one of the things that I always wanted to do was basically use short story and use that medium of a short story to help change lives. And that's what we're doing with Nana and the Bushwoman and stuff.
So between 95 and 2020, 2021,
mm-hmm.
Since you've been a doctor and between
mm-hmm.
then and now, has breast cancer increased or decreased in Black women?
Great question. In my opinion, it's to me, I think the incidence has probably stayed the same, but now we have more women waking up to their health. And so the incidence to me was probably there. It's just that now if you notice, like you have Health and Wellness Wednesdays going on. The churches are getting active in healthcare now. So now a lot of the information about healthcare that used to not necessarily be penetrating down into our community, it's accessible with the cell phone and stuff. I don't necessarily know if the overall there are more now than they were then. What I'm saying is I think that we are finding more now, and the generation of doctors and nurses and healthcare providers are they're more attuned now than they were 20 years ago, in my opinion and stuff.
I say this, Doc, because the food is worse.
Yeah.
And I think from what I have always gathered, diet plays a role in either decreasing the potential of cancer or increasing it. Diet, what we eat, where we live, the stress. I mean, for Black people, I think has the stress gotten any better? I mean, stress is a contributing factor.
I don't think the stress has gotten better, but what I'm saying is I think that you have a lot of more. I think you have a lot of more people who are getting more knowledge in terms of proper diet, in terms of proper living, the impact of stress. It's not that the stress is going away, but what's happened is I think almost just the concept of like holistic health now. And the fact that you remember like what is it, Serenanda in Atlanta, Georgia and stuff, they have the health food store in that the black owned communal health food store over in Little Five Points. You have a lot of African Americans that are going vegan, that are getting more health conscious and stuff. So while you're right about some cancers in terms of food playing a role, because what you take into your body does affect you. And if you look at most every type of cancer, your intake, your food intake plays a role with it. What you also have to understand is that with breast cancer and stuff, there are some familial type of genetic risk factors as well. And so the whole key is and that's kind of like one of the things that the book kind of like touches on. And what when I talk with some people over in Ghana, especially there's a guy named Dr. Joe Clegg Lamptey. And basically Dr. Joe Clegg Lamptey has been for 25 years, has been fighting breast cancer in that environment. And one of the things he told me was to make sure that whenever I speak, that you tell the sisters that if you come to me early with the problem, I can address it. The key is women are presenting late. And with breast cancer, the later you present, the worse your outcome is. So the whole key is some of it's genetic. And you have to deal with this. There's some stigma in certain societies, and there's some stigma that happens over here in America because a lot of women, when they get sick, they believe that it's between them and God. You see them coming from, and they don't necessarily let an extended family or some of their family members know that they're actually engaging and dealing with this issue. Well, the same thing happens over there. A lot of people believe that if you are from a family and you have an illness, then that puts a shadow on your family. So what happens is there's secrets that are kept over there, and the women really don't discuss breast cancer as much as they discuss it over here. It's just been the last 4 or 5 years that they've been really having large breast cancer walks and things like that over in West Africa and stuff. Here, we've been doing it 15, 20 years, and on Breast Cancer Awareness Month, everybody's out there walking in pink and doing their thing. But the bottom line is over there, because you are your family, if your family has a shade on it, you don't necessarily want to know. So people are dying in silence over there from breast cancer. So the one thing about this that I want to drive home is that over there you have traditional healing and you also have modern healing. But the bottom line is sometimes they'll go to the traditional route first, and then when they get to the modern route, it'll be too late. So if you notice, one of the things I did with that Bushwoman character is I created a character that had the ability to go between both worlds. So she, in the traditional world, the Bushwoman is a matriarch who is the head of the family clan. But what she does is on a regular basis, every 7 months, she brings all the women to a lodge and she blesses them from head to toe with shea in shea oil. But the bottom line is, when the Bushwoman is actually blessing these women, one of the things she's actually doing is laying hands on them. And when she lays hands on their breasts, if she finds anything, she transitions to her other self, which is a modern woman who is familiar with quality healthcare. And she basically has a pipeline to get her people and her family to the best healthcare that exists in the country of Ghana. So she's kind of a double person. But you're 100% right about foods playing a role, but one of the things that also plays a role is genetics, environment, food, and there's no way.
Well, there's one other factor, Doc, and I'm not a doctor, but I've always thought that birth control played a role with breast cancer. Yay, nay?
I think it's hormones going in, and I'll defer to someone who deals with that on day in and day out. But what I will say is that, what women can do at the age of 20, 25 is they can go online and do a free screening and stuff like that. And it's only about 6 or 7 questions that you have to answer. And what it'll do is it'll kind of like give you a reference point to start discussing whether or not you need to have your mammograms and your regular checks happening earlier. Because what they found on it was that, some of the recommendations say, hey, don't start checking or doing your mammograms until you're 50. Well, here's the deal. If you have like a mother or sister or close relatives who has breast cancer, the reality is yours might need to be moved up to 40 or 45. Okay. So you have to tailor, each woman has to tailor their approach to when to start doing the MRIs and mammograms and CTs and ultrasounds and genetic testing. They have to tailor that to themselves and stuff. And it's based upon that woman's history and stuff. Okay. That's one thing I can tell you will allow people to engage this thing at an earlier point in with proper screening, take care of it before it gets out of hand.
So without assuming anything,
mm-hmm.
I'm hearing you encourage women
mm-hmm.
to, if they have their mothers, their grandmothers, their great-grandmothers, to talk to these women.
Yep.
And find out their medical history.
Absolutely. And that's one of the things that will determine, in this world where we are dealing with the COVID virus and everybody's kind of living in their own lane and stuff. One of the things that can actually impact, these women's breast cancer, and when they go into early screening and proper screening and stuff, and a proper plan for them, is their mother's history or their aunt's history or their grandmother's history. And the reality is sometimes we don't talk like we used to about that. And people in the African American community, we don't always talk about the bad times. We know, Donnie, you've been down south and stuff, and that sometimes brothers and sisters have been going through hard times down there that they don't always bring up on a day-to-day basis and stuff. Sometimes you have to pull your grandmama to talk about it.
It's the same in Baltimore and New York. Yeah. It's been said on this show, what's done in this house stays in this house.
Yeah, that's it. So literally the answer will be, might be, what happened to your auntie and how did your auntie pass away? Or your cousin. What type is your cousin? Well, she's not just under the weather. She's actually dealing with breast cancer. She's dealing with colon cancer. What is she dealing with? Because if we talk as a family, we can solve things. And that's one of the things that happens with Nana and the Bushwoman. What ends up happening is you basically have ahead of so that's the Bushwoman. The key is you basically have the Bushwoman who's the matriarch. But what happens is she's actually been trained in like London and everything. So she's a highly intelligent, progressive woman and stuff who really is business savvy. But when she comes back to Ghana and commits herself to protecting her family from breast cancer, because she had breast cancer and basically kept it to herself. And before she could come forward and let everybody know she had breast cancer, her sister developed breast cancer, but her sister's was more progressive and ended up taking her life and stuff. So the Bushwoman basically realized that by not communicating, by not sharing her story with her family members, she put her family at risk. So the Bushwoman comes back to Ghana and basically stands in the gap for all of the sisters in the family who might have breast cancer in the future.
Dr. Edmond, I'd like to clarify. Our mutual friend, Frazier Mathis, when we were in Tanzania, introduced me to a Bushwoman. Yep. And I've had nothing but the utmost respect for them ever since. Mm-hmm. And one particular Bushwoman that Frazier introduced me to claimed to have had a cure for AIDS.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I hear the term Bushwoman,
right,
I don't think of somebody from the country. I think of somebody that's closer to Dr. Sebi,
right,
and somebody that I need in my life.
There's no, and that's where yeah, you're 100% right. But that's where, so when you talk about that Bushwoman and use that Bushwoman term, it's also with this one, with mine, she's like the matriarch. So she is actually engaged in traditional healing. And if you actually, so when she's bringing people into the lodge or women into the lodge, she actually is doing she's blessing them in a traditional manner. And one of the things that a lot of the women from Ghana, when they read it, that they were attracted to it for, is because it talks about traditional healing in a way that doesn't down talk it. Okay, it actually integrates it in terms of modern healing and modern healthcare. And I think that in order to overcome the high incidence of death rate from breast cancer in Ghana, which is running at 80%. So once you get diagnosed, 80% of the time, it's already at an advanced stage. In America, with Black women, when you get diagnosed, 40% of the time it's at an advanced stage. But the number that's kind of like the norm is maybe 33%. So Black women in America still have a slight elevated rate of presenting, at an advanced stage than Caucasian women. But the bottom line is, back over to Ghana. So what happens is you got that high death rate, and we needed to get some way of getting addressing the issue and getting women to start talking about self-health care. And basically what I used was things that they knew, things that many African Americans know. They're Afrocentric symbols, the Adinkra symbols for wisdom, versatility, and greatness that a lot of people know. When people get tattoos on them, they use them for clothes. The Adinkra cotton clothes over there, they use them for, gold coins, earrings, everything like that. But each one of the symbols tells a small story and is affiliated with a parable. So the first symbol, which was wisdom, that's actually ties into the parable of the spider and stuff. And basically the spider, wisdom, yeah, there you go. It ties into the parable of the spider. And the spider is, you have to be wise. You have to be, if you notice, of all of the animals and insects out there, it plans and it lays down a strategy and stuff. So you have to be wise as a woman, and you have to strategize in terms of your life. The other thing you have to do is be versatile, because life is going to present you with challenges and stuff like that. And you're going to have to learn the art of actually adjusting your direction in order to achieve your common goal in the end. And the last symbol is for greatness, which is kind of like the strongest Adinkra symbol and affiliated with the strongest energy of the Adinkra symbols. And that's the symbol that I first saw on my brother. My brother got a tattoo with the Adinkra symbol greatness on it. And then when I was speaking with, I had a friend of mine, a surgeon, come and basically show me how to do a self-breast exam. I'm on the highest level, and I saw him moving his hands and using that circular motion, and that tied me into the wisdom, versatility, and greatness. And basically, we've had this looked at by surgeons who've run breast clinics for 20, 25 years, man. And they say, if you move your hands in these directions, so if you move your hands in these directions, they correspond. Yeah, they correspond to just your regular self-breast exam. So instead of wedges, we say use wisdom, the shape for wisdom, the symbol wisdom. Instead of lines, we're saying use versatility and celebrate the versatility in Black women. And then instead of circles from the outside in as you move your fingers, we say use the symbol for greatness right here.
Now, I don't mean to be ignorant, Doc. I'm halfway following you. What are you saying?
What's say?
I'm halfway following you.
Cool. If you're halfway following me, then we almost there.
So a woman needs to go like that.
No, here, let me show you, brother. I got it. Hey, we got it. This right here is a model that we use to teach people. Okay. So we can make it for your viewers and stuff like that. We can make it easier for you to listen. So basically, if we have this, this is your breast. If you remember, the first symbol that we use is going to be the one that looks like a star, which is wisdom. Okay. And that corresponds to, if you look at like any breast cancer center, they talk about wedges. What we do is, if this is your nipple, what you're going to do is with 2 fingers, 2 or 3 fingers, start from the middle and just work your way out to the sides. But what I'm doing is going, kind of a wedge fashion and stuff. Okay. And I'm working out and I'm feeling for any mass, any nodule. I'm not looking for tenderness as much, but I'm looking for anything that feels like a P. But I'm basically going wisdom right here. So I start from the inside nipple and work my way out to the sides. But if you notice, I'm putting my 2 fingers together and feeling. The next symbol that we use is versatility. And versatility corresponds to what the basic exam will call lines. So what we'll do is we'll start going horizontally across our breast, just like this. And I'm gently just feeling. And all I'm feeling for is masses. I'm feeling for, you can feel for tenderness, but the reality is tenderness is not the worst sign. What's bad is if you feel something that's there, feels like a P, but it's not tender. If it's not tender, you got to get help right away. So this is an example of your horizontal technique. So if you notice, I went across the breast, coming down, just running my 2 fingers across horizontal. Okay. And the last one is greatness. Okay. And for greatness, what we're going to do is we'll start with the internal circle. And then we're going to go outside to concentric, larger and larger circles. Okay. Until we're all the way on the outside. So literally what we're doing is showing women how to just use, instead of trying to use this whole concept of lines and circles and wedges, just use wisdom, versatility, and greatness. And if you use those symbols as a guide, you will give yourself a quality self-breast exam. It's easy to remember. And what it does is words matter. Okay. There's a difference between you doing a dry self-breast exam and me asking you, or the men in your life asking you to celebrate the wisdom, versatility, and greatness that make you the unique Black woman that you are. These are Afrocentric symbols. They were created by Africans from West Africa. The Bono tribe was the original one who came up with them. They're well known in Akan and in Ghana. And they're almost like emojis, like the peace sign, would be known over there. These guys grow up with them. Each one of them's affiliated with a kind of a parable and stuff. And all we did was take 3 to repurpose those in order to train the new generation of women how to protect themselves. That's the take home message from them.
So you said in the various, as they're feeling for, did you say a P?
Yeah, what you're doing is I want you to feel like feel for almost like a small P or a small bean in terms of size and stuff. And also if you
hard. It's hard.
What's that?
They're feeling for.
Yeah, it's usually hard.
It'll
hard. It'll be hard and feel like a P somewhere around in here. And men can do it as well. But the deal is, if you feel that P, the key is you feel it. But bottom line is you just want to get to know your body, because different people have different type of breasts, as you know. But what you want to do is you want to become familiar with yourself. So people.
Do big-breasted women have more of a challenge finding the P's?
Yeah, the key is with big-breasted women, they got more. They're going to have to move their hands over more and stuff. Okay.
They got more work to do.
Right. But the main thing you want to do is identify something. And that doesn't mean something's wrong all the way. What it does is, hey, if it changes, if you see something changing, the only way for you to know that something new is there is for you to actually know yourself. And so what we're trying to do is have an uplifting, positive approach that women can use towards getting to know themselves. If you look at some of the research, they went a lot of times, they went away from self-breast exams in some of the doctor's office. But the reason they went away from self-breast exams was because they had problems teaching people how to do them. Well, if you're in an environment or a community that's resource poor, if you that's it.
Hold on.
That's it.
Hold on.
Hit me with it, done.
In a world where I see cats riding up Pennsylvania Avenue with one hand on a dirt bike in the middle of traffic, and now you're telling me not only can we not do handwriting, cursive handwriting, 60 is passing, 0.13 is the average. Now you're telling me that we can't figure out how to feel our bodies. Are you telling me that, Doc?
Nope. I'm not telling you that, because I'm your guest, and I know Donnie Glover, and I'm an African American man. I'm telling you that we can. Okay. I'm telling you what, when you talk to people, when you do a literature search, when you talk to people, you're going to see that there was a movement at one time to push people away from self-breast exams and stuff. The reality is when you have, I'm telling you, it's crazy. Hey, every policy made is not made for us, Donnie. Okay.
Well, I'm glad you said that, because
for me, that policy was not made for a person who's high risk for breast cancer.
So I appreciate this book, and the various symbols, but I'm also reminded of some of the people in your profession who have been hailed as heroes, especially when it comes to Black women. And the one that comes to mind, they call this devil the father of gynecology.
Bro.
J. Marion Sims, who was out there doing experiments on black women without anesthesiology. I'm so sick of these Western hateful people.
What you have to understand is this and stuff. Hey, bro, I read the same book you read. The apartheid book. I read it in detail, and you can only take it. Yeah, you got medical apartheid. You got to take it, set it down, because as a physician, you not only know what's going on. Yeah, you can see it, man. You can see what's happening. But what we have to understand is that, you're 100% right, Donnie, about the history, and you cannot negate that history. But what you have to understand is that's why, to a certain degree, we have to take hold of our own dialogue and our own story. And that's why your podcast today is so important, man. Because you're able to actually put forward as a journalist what needs to be said, regardless of the influences of people on the outside. So the bottom line is we need more people speaking like you. The other thing is, quite frankly, we need more black medical schools and black pipelines. And, I think Morgan State that's actually setting up either a medical school or a PA school over there? I don't understand.
Engineering. Forgive me for not knowing. I know they have the engineering school.
Right.
When I think of medical school, I'm biased. I think of Morehouse Medical School,
No. So the whole deal is, I'm with you. But the bottom line is, I think that's one of the things. One of the answers to healthcare in this Baltimore area is actually creating an environment, an institution that generates the pipeline of people needed to provide care to our community. And I think that happened in Atlanta with Morehouse School of Medicine and stuff. And it's my understanding that Morgan State is considering either opening up a PA school or a doctor of osteopathic medicine school. And I think it's Morgan. You can check me on, but I think that's it. And if they do, it's going to change what happens, how healthcare is done in the city of Baltimore.
Osteopathy is that study of bones?
No, what it is that's orthopedics. What it is, there are two types of doctors. One is called an allopathic medicine. The other one's called an osteopathic medicine. So you're going to see some doctors who have either MD behind their name. That's allopathic. And then you have other ones that have a DO, doctor of osteopathic medicine. But the deal is they take the same test required to enter residencies, and they train side by side right now in America. So what you have to understand is, there's going to be some positive changes happening in Baltimore, but I think a lot of the positive changes in health are going to be contingent upon Morgan State or one of the HBCUs getting together and actually establishing a place where you can train health providers.
Because I can tell you there's some innate distrust of the white institutions, particularly Hopkins, which my grandmother said back in 1950, don't go to sleep in East Baltimore. You'll end up in a Hopkins experiment.
No, we're not going to say that. Now, the key is, I know that's the reality that your grandmother said. But on the other side of things, we do have to ask. We people do have to ask the question. And mind you, I am not speaking on behalf of Hopkins. I'm not speaking on behalf of any place else I work. These are my perceptions that I've developed over the past year. That's the disclaimer. Okay, so no one can say, "Hey, this guy said this." What I'm telling you is this. When I sit back and look at it, and having been in multiple environments and stuff like that, it's very difficult for me to actually understand how you can say that you have a world-class institution that's located in Baltimore and then have the highest levels of any type of illnesses occurring in the Baltimore community, especially in the African-American and Hispanic community in Baltimore. That is one of the things that I don't understand. So when I realized I was going to be talking with you, Don, I had to ask this question. I'd say, hey, man, where do I have my experience where this thing has at least allowed a community to take a step forward? And that's what happened in Atlanta, because Morehouse School of Medicine didn't get established till the 1970s. But what they did was came in with the mission that we're going to do community medicine. Yeah, we're going to do community medicine and help our community. And so what ended up happening is, you got that black medical school that's right there. The president of it is an African-American woman. they have programs that elementary schools students come to, middle school students, they get to come through and actually look at labs, participate in summer research programs, communicate and participate in health-oriented activities to orient that community in Atlanta towards improved health in the black community. And Morehouse was established in order to do community health, and they're probably number 6 in the nation out of all schools in terms of the quality of the people coming out there that do community health. I want you to imagine if that's the case, if Morgan State had that.
I just want to encourage our historically black colleges and universities, and this is no swing at them. I'm the biggest fan. Mm-hmm. We see a lot of money going to these institutions, money that was owed to them, money that was denied to them, money coming in the form of reparations. I just hope that the educated black people that come out of these HBCUs don't get too bougie and forget about the mission, like you have not forgotten about the mission.
You can't.
We can take on, we can play that nonprofit game too. Oh, we're here to help the impoverished African Americans. But meanwhile, you know, they living out in Buckhead, they living out in another county and don't have a real connection with the inner city. Black people, I'm talking about that cultural, intraracial racism, prejudice, whatever you want to call it.
Johnny, you 100%, you're 100% right. But what you also have to understand is, sometimes you have to take your influences from where you are, okay? And life is a period of growth. So where your mind is when you're 18 or 20 or when you're in training isn't necessarily where your mind is when you're 50 years old or something of that nature. So on the one hand, I always give room for people to grow in terms of their expression and how they want to engage in the world. But one of the things that I got to drive home and stuff is that, before people have to fight their battles where they are. So what you have to understand is with Johns Hopkins, they have people that are actually doing research, high-end research, to actually help assist and make the argument and clarify the causes of the differences in outcomes. It's more than just saying that, hey, we have a difference in outcome, but actually breaking down from a public health standpoint why that occurs and actually finding solutions to how that occurs. So just as sure as, when we look at the institution of Hopkins, it's tough because you got people who I call dragon slayers up in there. A dragon slayer is somebody who's always fighting dragons, going forward, doing great things and stuff, but they're out there alone. So what happens is the community doesn't know that you actually have leaders that are functioning on that high level, in these institutions. And you got them at University of Maryland, you got them at Baltimore, and you have them at Sinai. So it's not to say that the whole institution is doing right, but what it's to say is, no, man, you need to talk to Dr. John Sampson and stuff. And John Sampson is a tight brother, and he's leading an initiative to basically increase the number of operating rooms, quality operating rooms that exist in sub-Saharan Africa. He's been doing medical missions for 25 years over to Ghana, Sierra Leone. In fact, between me and you, when COVID broke out here, I was over there working with John, and we were basically, I was part of a group of guys, and we were basically teaching nurse anesthetists in Sierra Leone how to use ventilators and stuff in anticipation of it. These guys are good-hearted guys that are working and doing great things and stuff. So it's not to say, hey, man, but that's why I can't paint Hopkins with that type of a brush, because on some levels they're doing great things. But I can say that I would expect that the situation in Baltimore to be much better, considering the resources, revenues that come into this city as part of this healthcare issue.
Let me just say that there have been great Black champions, including Vivian Thomas, who I call Dr. Vivian Thomas. Mm-hmm. He worked with Dr. David Blaylock on the Blue Baby syndrome. He trained Johns Hopkins doctors, although when he got over to Morgan, they wanted him to take biology 101. Mm-hmm. That's an example of where our HBCUs clearly missed the mark. But there was Dr. Levi Watkins, Dr. Elijah Sanders, as well as the other giants whose shoulders you stand on, Dr. Charles Drew, Dr. Daniel Hale Williams. I think of the Black doctors, we've had one on this show, Dr. Michael Zollicoffer. His father helped found Garwin Medical Center back in the 70s, if I'm not mistaken. So we have at least at Garwin, at Northern Utah, Edmondson Village, at least 3 black medical, almost like strip malls. I won't say it, but
I know exactly. I know exactly what you're talking about. But let me ask this question for you, Donnie, and stuff like that. You know, with all those, and while we respect those efforts and everything, you know, the question is that, you know, why don't we have in Baltimore? We all always do this when I come to a northern city from Atlanta. When I come up here, you know, it's like this. If y'all been free that long, if you had this many more opportunities than brothers down in the Deep South, why is it that the vision and leadership of this in this city, why can't we push the envelope as well? Some of you are, you know, I'm not gonna get into the super politics because I told you my tribe is Southwest Atlanta. Okay.
Well, let me answer.
But yeah, riddle me this, because I don't understand how you can have shock trauma, which is actually one of only 2 of the highest rated trauma centers in America, and then Johns Hopkins, which is one of the top institutions for research and consistently ranks in the top institutions in America. And then you look at Baltimore and what's happening in the community, and you're still running into these heavy problems that seem to just be to not be being addressed. It's almost like they come here, get their education, and then take their knowledge outside of the community in order to live their professional lives. What about the pipeline for people from Baltimore going into medical school that can stay in the Baltimore area and stuff? My brother's a doctor, my sister's a doctor. They both in Atlanta.
Question, but I'll take a stab at your question. More money was invested in the North when it came to education versus the South. When I went to Atlanta for school, I didn't know that public education in Georgia was considered 49th in the country at that time. I didn't understand that the Mississippi Delta had some of the highest poverty rates outside of sub-Saharan Africa. Whether you up north, where they got freedom by 1804, or whether you're down south, actually Florida had free black people all the time. Florida was a freedom colony. People trying to escape South Carolina, Georgia, Alabama, Mississippi. But it's the same fight. Some might be a quick fight, some might be a long fight, but it's the same fight. So even though in Brooklyn, you had Weeksville, independent black community, 1838. Seneca Village in Manhattan, 1825. Even though you had these pockets of progress, and you had those blacks who took advantage of it, there's still the masses. And so whether they're in Bedford-Stuyvesant projects, or they're in the projects just across the street from Morehouse, or
right across the street from Hopkins.
Some is a long, it's a long fight, and some is a short fight, but it's still, for instance, there in Atlanta, they have Emory. They have Emory University. As great as Morehouse was, and Morehouse Medical School at Atlanta University, and I was only there 2 years, I still knew that Emory did not want most black people over there.
Oh, let me tell you, everybody got stories about that, but this is my story happened when I was interviewing at Emory for medical school. And this is back in the 80s, like 80, I think I came out in like 86. But the bottom line is, when I went to the interview there, they had a joint interview where 3 people are sitting next to each other. So 3 or 4 candidates being interviewed across the table from 5 or 6 members of the interview team. And this was 1986. Well, I came in there for the interview. I sat down and stuff like that. And the lead-off question was, you know, Mr. Edmond, I see you went to Morehouse College. Why did you insist on going to an all-black college and segregating yourself from Greater America? That was the question I got. True story. That was the question I got from Emory Medical School.
Perception. That's their crap, and they want to put it on. They almost blame you. They almost blame you for their inferiority.
Absolutely. So what ended up happening, and I'll give you the answer that I gave them, and this answer stays today.
I would have caught my first charge right there.
No, bro, it was a different time. Let me explain. Your answer is this: when people are throwing bombs and stuff, trying to rattle you, then the thing that you have, and is number one, you have to be organized in your thinking, and that's what Kwame Ture said. You got to be organized in your approach, and you have to be articulate. So I told him the truth. I said I chose Morehouse College because I want, and this is for HBCUs and anyone who's thinking about sending their child to an HBCU. I chose Morehouse College because I wanted to go into an environment where I could study knowledge for knowledge's sake. And if I performed, it was because I performed. If I didn't perform, it was because I wasn't appropriate. And that's why I went to that environment. It's done well for me, and I think it'll do well for others. And that's one of the things that you have to understand. When you're studying knowledge, we talk about, black and white and everything, but when you start getting into the upper echelons of medicine and stuff, you're studying knowledge for knowledge's sake and stuff. The algorithms, the stuff, the medicines I use, the algorithms I use on a day-to-day basis when I'm doing open heart surgery. Hey, man, they're just there. You either got to know them or not know them and stuff. But one of the things that I got to tie you into is just the whole concept that it's that HBCU environment where you can actually go in there, you see other people practicing excellence and stuff. There's something to it, man. And I went to Morehouse. There were 2,000 black men all at one time trying to make it happen, man. And I just haven't seen that in a lot of places in the world. But I'm talking about my college.
I would ask those people at Emory if I could go in a time machine back to your interview in 1986.
Mm-hmm.
I would tell them, I would answer them with this. I would tell them about going to Clark to take physical science. And I had a white professor at Clark. Now, mind you, around that time, they had just had the Nile Valley Conference. Dr. Cheek Anta Diop came through. Dr. Ivan Van Sertima, some of the greatest minds in science and medicine.
Know them all.
And they wanted me to think that the Greeks, this white professor was telling me, and I'm paying $8,000 a year. It was what, 40, 50,000 now a year now. I'm paying this guy top dollar to tell me that the Greeks developed science and math and medicine.
Right.
I felt sick to my stomach because I knew that before I went to Morehouse.
Gotcha. Well, I believe it happened to you. I understand. But one of the other things that you understand and that you obviously learned when you went to Clark, Morehouse, or Coppin State, when you came up here, when you got your education, someone taught you how to do free thinking. And that happened to me as well at Morehouse College. When
Baltimore City Public Schools.
Yeah, hey, not knocking it. Everybody gets it at a different level. Me, I got it when I was an 11th grader. I went down to spend some time with my brother who was at Morehouse, and there was a guy named Willie Ricks Mukasa who came through, man, and broke it down. And so Mukasa broke it down to me and sent me back and had my head hurting. But the one thing about it, he forced me and he exposed me to the plight of the Indians. He exposed me to a lot of things. And
Did you know he founded the Black Panthers?
Yeah, I know. Actually, quiet as kept, he's the one who came up with Black Power, the sign Black Power and stuff. And so I know Willie Ricks was the guy. We sitting there arguing and almost came to blows. But when I went home, I was thinking and stuff. But one of the things, if Willie Ricks was an influence on me, I had another guy who was an algebra teacher in my high school, Mr. Stanley, who was a pastor, straight-laced kind of dude from Fort Valley. And I went back to him and asked him a question Willie Ricks asked me. I asked him, I said, Mr. Stanley, I talked to a man and he said that there were more books written under divine inspiration from the Bible, that there were more books written under divine inspiration than the books that are in the King James Bible. So, and that's what Mukasa said. Hey, man, you talking about being a Christian? There were other books written under divine inspiration. So I had to go double check and I was like, oh my God, this dude is right. So, but the bottom line is I go back and I ask my algebra teacher that. I say, hey, Mr. Stanley, there are more books to the Bible that we're using. And Mr. Stanley, who was a guy who was an algebra guy, he looked at me and said, Mr. Edmond, he said, the question is not whether or not there are more books written under divine inspiration from the Bible. The question is whether or not the Bible that you hold in your hand is enough of a Bible to save your soul. Point being, a lot of times we're always looking for things outside the Black community. We're always trying to set things up outside the Black community to help us to get something done. Morehouse College was started because one person had a vision of having a medical school, another new medical school at a Black institution, and that was Hugh Gloucester. And Hugh Gloucester basically was the guy who put together a small team of people. There was a chemist, a guy from NIH and his daughter, and those were the guys who were the leading effort to actually establish Morehouse School of Medicine. So what I'm saying is I'm excited and hope that Morgan State, Coppin State, somebody starts either a PA training program or a medical school in the Baltimore area, because that is the long-term change and will provide you with the resources and the energies, the personnel to do the long-term struggle that needs to be done in order to lift the healthcare in this community. And that's me. Can I go ahead? Go ahead.
I did want to share with you that one of the challenges in Baltimore, if you were to compare it to Atlanta's kept a Black mayor for about 40 years, if I'm not mistaken. And Atlanta is home of the civil rights movement in many ways. Right. And so that political pressure, now I almost thought Keisha Bottoms was in trouble in that election. That white woman was a bit ahead of her, made me uncomfortable. But there's been a momentum in Atlanta, and there's a momentum in Washington, D.C., at least there was, that went on for a very strong time. In Baltimore, that I consider the home of segregation.
Well, it is, because it was the Baltimore City Council that came up with that. What's it the article about, 1920 something? That basically, that Baltimore City Council article was sent out across America as the roadmap for how to disenfranchise Black communities across America and stuff. So you are correct on that.
Yeah, and two Black lawyers stayed on his case, but Baltimore, they wouldn't let Blacks move into white neighborhoods, nor could whites move into Black neighborhoods. So there's this, Baltimore is still Black and white. They got Asians, Afghanistanis, Koreans, Africans, but the heart of Baltimore and a burgeoning Latino population, but fundamentally is Black and white. It's very, to me, it's very racist. And what's unfortunate is those Black people with degrees who are in position, elected, appointed, or otherwise, don't understand their power.
Right. Some, believe it or not, man,
much more with much less.
You're right, but with like I told you, with these dragon slayers, they're out there, they're doing these great things. But a dragon slayer is a person who's always going forward. So they're going forward on the highest levels in Hopkins and Maryland and in business and stuff like that, doing all these great things. But what happens with dragon slayers is sometimes they get isolated. They lose contact with the rear guard. So the reason that they're fighting, they lose guard with that. So Donnie, what I challenge you with your voice and your journalism and your insight, I challenge you to be that connector. You know, when you identify the dragon slayers, as you look at them and say, yo, man, you way out there on your own, you're doing great things, but let me connect you and show you where you can connect to the community. And so you can bring your resources, your expertise back. One way that I've been able to do it is to actually get involved in educating, increasing the number of Black men and kids that go into medicine and stuff. So I've been an advocate for that for like 10 years and stuff, where I'm actually basically coaching, talking, preaching about getting more Black people into medicine and stuff. So it's not like when you say, well, hey, that's not on the street level necessarily, but it does deal with dreams and it deals with vision. And it deals with showing them that they can. You know? That
when I have studied math at Poly or studied physical science there at Clark University with the white professor, or studied international affairs at grad school out in Morgan with a white professor, I'm always reminded that if our children knew that the first doctor was a Black man and a Black woman, that the first civil rights were Black.
You talk about, speaking of people, the Amhotep program. The Amhotep program actually is run by a sister who's from Johns Hopkins, and she's one of the one of the leaders in terms of training public health doctors and people across America. But she has a program she established 20 years ago to train a diverse population of kids. Johnny is like 80 to 100 of them per summer to do public health research to help Baltimore.
If I knew at Poly that the first pyramids, A squared plus B squared equals C squared, if they just had a little bit of African Egyptian Kemet component that took the dollar bill and flipped it over and say, do you see this pyramid? Your people did this. That's all.
Do you see these symbols? They're 200-year-old symbols that your people did. You can use these symbols today to help your family address breast cancer and know yourself and learn yourself.
How can people get in touch with you, Doc?
All you got to do is the BEdmondproject.com or just contact Donnie Glover, man. Yeah, that's what Frazier said, dude. And it seems like it worked for me. But the bottom line is go to your website and stuff, and you can give them the link. You can get that on Amazon, iBooks. It's in electronic format, and it's only a 35-minute read. It's only maybe a 45-minute listen to. Half the proceeds go to support 2 African-American nonprofits that address breast cancer. It's dedicated to my mom, who's a survivor, Delisa Jordan, who passed away in '97, and Karen Boom Boom Hart, who passed away on the printing, the day we did our last draft, July 14th last year. 3 sisters who were impacted by breast cancer, man. And Frazier, we got to talk about Frazier right quick, just in closing.
I'm going to come off the screen and let you say your final thoughts, including something about Frazier Mathis, who is quite a bully. I ain't scared of him, but that is my
Hey guys, audience, thank you so much for joining us today on Donnie's show. I hope that it was uplifting and positive for you and actually spark some thought for you. We want to let you know that there's an Afrocentric approach to addressing breast, or educating people about breast health exams. And it's found in the book, Nana and the Bushwoman. And basically what we do is take 200-year-old Adinkra symbols and repurpose them in order to teach modern women how to do proper self-breast exams. Frazier Mathis is one of the persons who connected me with Donnie. Frazier, I want to thank you and your wife for all that you do for Africa. He runs a number of orphanages in Africa, but I think that the thing that I want to say most about Frazier is I went to church with Frazier for a number of years, but I moved him into being one of my leaders in my life and role models in my life because I saw him out at the Million Man March. And when I was at the Million Man March, he was handing out an Afrocentric edition of a book called Steps to Christ. And basically, and he was doing it in dashiki. He didn't even recognize me. He handed me my copy. I went on, but I made my mind up at that point that I'd support him whatever he does. He started some orphanages. I've been supporting him from the get-go, and I just love him and his wife. And he's been a pleasure to know. And Donnie, I hope he's been a benefit to you. I'm gonna close this out, and that's it, brother. What's up?
I got one rebuttal.
What's that?
I got one rebuttal. One problem with Frazier Mathis. When he took me to Tanzania, nobody told me that we had a vegan diet, man. I'm looking for
steak. I told you.
Looking for steak. I had to leave the compound. I got lost on this road with no lights and black people. He left me hanging. No dead chicken, no steak, no A1, no Heinz 57. I didn't need a 7-Eleven. Then I got in a caravan trying to find the steak. And I was in a caravan with about 15 other Tanzanians. And I was sitting next to a lady that had a live chicken in her lap. And I'm from Baltimore, and I had never experienced something like that in my life. That looked at the chicken, looked at me. I looked at the chicken looked. I was no good, bro. Frazier's a dirty dog.
That's right. Hey, man, the bottom, he I'm sure he didn't tell you before he left. But the bottom, like I said, you have this push in our community to eat right, live right, and do right. And I encourage all your listeners that as you learn better, hey, let's just do better. And the other thing is, remember, like what my algebra teacher said, it doesn't matter whether you need more Bible. Actually, you got enough resources, talent within the Baltimore community right now to make the differences that each of you want to see happen.
He didn't tell me you went to Morehouse either. That's the whole setup. See, he set me up again.
He set you up.
He set me up.
Yeah, but no, that's it. Yeah, we know Mukasa, and then there was a sister. One of the inspirations in the book for the tattoos was she helped start the first Black Panther Party in Baltimore. Real nice sister. She has a podcast or radio show that she participates in sometimes. It'll come to my mind. But what happened was when I told her the story, before I had written it, when she heard the story, she said, "Your tattoos look like this, don't they?" And she showed me some tattoos and examples and talked to me about it. And she said, Dr. E, you have to put this in print. It's imperative that you do it because our community needs to know that there are ways to approach breast health in a more uplifting Afrocentric manner, and hopefully we do that with None in the Bushwoman. All righty.
Thank you, Doc.
Hey, bro, it's been real, man, and stuff. You know,
with the Black Lawyers Roundtable, we have to bring you back again. Thank you, Frazier. To God be the glory. Have a powerful day, everybody.
God bless y'all, man. Peace.
Yes, sir.
Mm-hmm.